Now the former foreign minister of Venezuela says that country is on the brink of civil war, and there are reports that the Trump administration is now monitoring Venezuela's unrest. Erick Brimen joins us now. He immigrated to the United States from Venezuela. He is the founder of New Way Capital, and he is now a U.S. citizen. Erick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Charles, for having me.
How long ago did you leave Venezuela?
I left Venezuela about 16 years ago when I was still a teenager.
I'm sure you have a lot of relatives, a lot of acquaintances, a lot of friends there. From the outside looking in, this looked inevitable. In other words, not just socialism failing, but over the last few years, first Chavez and now Maduro, given the military giant pay raises and things like that, it feels like we're setting up for a real ugly confrontation.
Absolutely, Charles. In some ways, it was inevitable. I mean, history is very clear about the types of policies that were implemented in Venezuela simply not working. There is almost a natural law that you cannot defy when it comes to socialism versus the freedom of people to pursue their own interests and what works and what doesn't.
And yet the nation embraced it, particularly under the charismatic leadership of Chavez. But remember, I guess at one point, with crude oil over $100, not only was he making promises to the Venezuelans there, but to almost everyone in South America, and he had a real movement going on.
He did, and when oil was not only abundant but also expensive, they could get away with it. Unfortunately, the types of policies they put in place managed to destroy the productive capacity of the country, and even oil started to drop in terms of its production, and clearly world markets have not been playing in its favor.
So, Erick, you have a situation now where the country where people are starving, where it's just, we see it disintegrating before our very eyes, and Maduro apparently giving weapons to peasants to, I guess, bolster his army. How do you see this ending?
Well, it's a tough situation. The situation in Venezuela, I think, matters a lot to us in the United States for three main reasons. The first, it's a clear example of what we shouldn't do. And unfortunately, I think we're moving too much in that direction. Second, it's turning into a crisis, a humanitarian crisis, which will, before too long, become a refugee crisis, and that comes with its own economic and national security issues. And third, but not least, the situation in Venezuela, when you look at it from the inside and understand the larger geopolitical context, looks very similar to Syria. The conditions on the ground lend itself for the same type of dynamics to evolve. Clearly, some of the same actors behind the scenes are at play, and it's a country that is very rich in oil resources, and even though the current government has been unable to stimulate an economy and bring foreign direct investments to effectively leverage that industry, it's a resource that is available there. And the question is, what's going to happen next? Who's going to end up in power? And are we going to just sit back and let it happen while it is both a humanitarian crisis, a national security crisis, as well as a clear example of where we shouldn't be headed?
Erick, thank you very much. We really appreciate you sharing your personal and your professional knowledge about what's happening there. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Charles.